I forgot it.
You're being recorded, you're okay with this?
No, but do I have a choice?
Yes, you do.
No, that's fine. Okay. So I'm going to give you a little lesson in transactions today. I hope not to put you to sleep. I'm going to talk about what it takes to purchase a property. I'm going to talk about it in terms of the absolute deluge, thank you for pointing that out earlier, Eugene, of paperwork that takes place. When I get to 2 minutes, let me know, please.
Sure.
Okay. First of all, the first step, of course, is to find the property the client wants. That could be one property, that could be 5 properties, that could be 55. I did that to my first real estate agent. I looked at 55 houses before I made a decision. It's probably why God put me in this profession as revenge. But once we find a property, we go forward and write an offer. That offer is 29 pages long. The offer for a piece of real estate is 29 pages long. So it's incumbent not only on the agent, but also on the buyer to understand what they're doing. If we get a counter offer, that's short, that's only 2 pages long, and then we go back and forth until we have a deal, at which point we will open escrow. Then comes the fun part. The contingency period, standard contingency period on a purchase in the state of California is 17 days, but it's not fixed. It can be as long or as short as the parties agree to. My most recent transaction was all cash, and they wanted a 14-day contingency period. So here's what we had to do. There are 52 pages of disclosures that come from the seller to the buyer. The buyer is expected to review them all, understand what they say, and sign off on them. One of the things that I always make my buyers do or suggest that they do is have a third-party inspection of the property. This inspection is 75 pages long. The buyer is expected to read it all, understand it, ask any questions, and go forth from there. In the course of that inspection, it was determined that there had been some termite activity in the property. So we had a termite inspection. The termite inspection is only 6 pages long. The buyer is expected to review it, understand what it says, ask any questions, and proceed. This property had a pool and a spa, so we had a pool inspection. 17 pages long. Buyer is expected to read, understand, and ask any questions. Then comes it's in an association. I didn't count the pages on the CC&Rs, but I can tell you it was 100 or more. The buyer is expected to review those documents, ask any questions. In addition to the governing documents, they will get a budget, they will get the financial reports, and they're expected to review that and ask any questions or have any concerns. Then there's insurance. As I've indicated to you before, insurance in the state of California is quite difficult, and I told you a week or so ago that we were saved by the bell or by a former BNI member, for which we were very grateful. I'm going to talk about how we got to that and how this has been the biggest issue in the course of this transaction. One of the disclosures, and probably the most important disclosure the seller gives, is the seller's property questionnaire. It's let's see, SPQ is how many pages? I think it's like 19 or 20. And the seller is expected to answer questions that have to do with all aspects of the property. One of the questions on there is, have there been any insurance claims in the last 5 years? And it's a yes or no question. You have a bunch of yes or no questions, go down, check, 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 check. On ensuing pages, there are some descriptions of what's been done to the property. What this seller did is they checked the box no. They had an insurance claim 3 years ago, but they forgot when it was. So what they did is they checked the box no, and then in the ensuing pages, put the details of what had happened. It was basically a fairly small slab leak that was fixed, and the insurance company paid for it. No one knew about that until they went to get insurance and are striving to find insurance, and lo and behold, we find out, oh, there was a claim on this property 3 years ago. Needless to say, the buyer was very, 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 very upset because in her estimation, the seller had misrepresented the property and there had to be something wrong. There had to be something wrong. Why would the seller do that? Based on the million things to do, and it's only 3, you can understand how perhaps that seller made a mistake. And as a result, jeopardized the transaction to the tune of $2.5 million. So the point of my story here is that, yes, it's incumbent on the buyer to understand, to read and understand all that stuff. When the buyer saw that additional documentation, she didn't ask any questions. It wasn't until the insurance issue presented itself. Fortunately, we hope, because we're not closed yet, we're going to be able to get through this. The seller has given all the information. The buyer has accepted that it was not it wasn't intentional. It was not an intentional failure to disclose. It was a mistake. So when you go to buy or sell a property, here's what I want to tell you. As a seller, make sure that you know exactly what you're doing when you start filling out those forms, because all these pages, you as the seller have to complete. If you're going to buy, make sure as the buyer you read and question everything, because one little thing like that can completely obliterate a transaction. In addition to negotiating a price, once we go through this process, after 14 days or within 14 days, we need to negotiate who's going to do what, who's going to repair what, how serious is this repair. One of the things about a third-party inspection, which is the 75-page document I was talking about, is third-party inspectors have a purpose to, one, find and point out anything they see. 2 minutes. But they also have a purpose for their own self-preservation to protect their butts. So a third-party inspector will call out everything they see. So it's really important to be able to discern is what is material, what is important, and what is serious, as opposed to, oh, there's corrosion around that, there's corrosion around a fixture, if you will. And I think, Christian, you probably could say there's probably corrosion around every fixture, right? But those are the kinds of things. So that becomes a negotiation. That becomes incumbent on me as the buyer's agent to help them go through those 75 pages and say, well, what does this really mean? And how important is this? And what is going to be the effect of that? And can you live with it or not? Is this something, are you willing to walk away? I've asked this buyer 3 times, do you want to walk away? And we've had 2 and 3 days at a time when she thought about it. So all I can say is, as a seller, make sure that you have all of your receipts, that you have all the history, and you have a timeline so that you don't forget how long ago something happened. As a buyer, be aware you're going to spend a lot of time reading, ask a lot of questions, and just make sure that you understand what you're doing. Caveat emptor used to be the real estate industry in California. I got my license in 1986. It was a 2-page offer, and there was no disclosure. It was the question was, are there any material facts that impact the property? What's a material fact? Can any of the attorneys in the room actually tell me what that is? Not really, right? It's whatever the court decides. So anyway, that's my lecture for the day. Does anybody have any questions?
Question.
Yeah.
So I have this one customer that's trying to sell their house, and their animals have been defecating in the house for like 2 decades. And they didn't want to go through a biohazard cleaning. Instead, they're just cleaning all the floors in the house. Does that have to be disclosed to a buyer? Or?
Yeah, there is a question. There's a question that says, have there been animals on the property? Are there any? Yeah, I would suggest, I don't know who their agent is, but I would suggest that their agent have a real serious come to Jesus meeting with them. Because that is, the downside of that is, say they just, that's all they say, and then something happens, they're liable for failure to disclose. Or they lose the transaction for failure to disclose. Anybody else?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Property profile, property title, the prelim. So who goes, and this is, I do this for a living, I don't go over the prelim with my borrowers.
Oh, yeah.
And just like when I bought something, I didn't realize it didn't have a driveway.
I didn't even talk about the prelim. Thanks, Ronnie.
I know. So the prelim is very important because it tells you all kinds of stuff that's,
Yeah.
your lot line. And I'm finding now with clients that they thought they had a certain lot line and they don't. So as a real estate agent, what do you go over the prelim with the borrowers?
What I try to do is I review the prelim. I review the prelim and see if I can see anything on it. They have to review it as well. But I really try to look at it and see if there's something there that would, that would create a problem. But I'm not an attorney, and I make it abundantly clear that I am not an attorney. So, if there's a question or if there's something that's of consequence, could be of consequence, they need to talk to somebody. The preliminary title report is the description of the property as it is registered with the county, as it is recorded with the county.
When I bought my house, it said it was a
Duplex.
with a 3-car garage.
Right.
There was no garage, and it was a triplex.
Right.
And then I got into and I asked the realtor, is this a problem that I'm buying something
Yes.
that it's not? Because that's the way Laguna is.
Yeah. No. Laguna's well, the people's, yeah.
I spent a lot of money.
Yeah, you did.
To get to that corrective.
Well, and the People's Republic of Laguna is very strict on their building stuff, and they have a property profile in the city usually that has whatever information they can glean. Every time you sell a property in Laguna Beach, you have to obtain one of those. You have to have an inspection and obtain one. So
Would we have to spend money to change that or not?
to change it, what do you mean to change? What did you end up doing? Or how did you
No, I bought the house like that.
you took it as is?
As is, but that's not what I had. And then I had a neighbor that said that I converted my garage.
Right. It reported you.
Built the duplex into a triplex, and the city said I had to convert it back. And I was like, I didn't do anything. I bought it like this. But that's not what was on my title.
Well, yeah.
Which wasn't a zone or.
Yeah. It could have been, yeah. It's very hard to tell. Anyway, I know I've taken too much time. Thank you.